Welcome to this book-by-book journey through the Old Testament, where we make present-day spiritual application to exciting Old Testament stories that will challenge you to believe and receive all that God has for you today through the finished work of Jesus.
So, second, we see here that Moses said, "Must we give you water out of this rock?" Now, who do you think the "we" is that he's referring to? Probably him and Aaron, right? I don't know where God is in the picture, but it's probably him and Aaron, right? So he, in the eyes of the people, he's exalting himself above God. You know, you guys are always complaining. You're always coming to us. And now Aaron and I, we're always having to meet your needs. Must we? Then there's that proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. Moses struck the rock. He was disobedient to God's command. He chose to do it the old way when God had given him a new and a different way to do it. Sometimes we like the old way. Moses was angry. He exalted himself. He was disobedient. And before the entire congregation, there's a public failure of the leader. Moses missed it. And God was still faithful. He poured out the water. And even though the leader failed, God met the needs of the people. Okay. What's the consequences? The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust me to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I gave them." Even though Moses had been faithful for 40 years, he had listened to their grumbling and their complaining, their insubordination, their rebellion for 40 long, hot, trying years. And this one incident, he is not permitted to go into the promised land. Now, how many of you, and I want you to be real honest, how many of you think this is a little bit unfair? God's not going to strike you dead. Come on. How many of you have read this and said, "That's not very fair"? Am I the only one? Would you like to know the rest of the story? Okay. Now that I have your attention, we can all identify with Moses' frustration, right? He's lost his sister. He's put up with their grumbling. He's 120 years old at this point. I think he might be a little bit worn out. I've always said anybody that's over 80, they get their way. They've earned it. My mom, when she's with me, it's like, "Whatever you want, Mom. Whatever you want." Just one outburst of anger. I mean, he is Mr. Pancake Face himself. Every time something goes wrong, he falls flat on his face and he's interceding for the people. They have failed over and over and over again, and Moses, one failure. And we think, God, for goodness sake, can't you have a little compassion on this guy? So what's going on here, okay? Is the God of the Old Testament not as compassionate as the God of the New Testament? That's something that we study in early church history because there was a man who declared that, and that's heresy. So how do we square, or how do we reconcile this Old Testament God with the New Testament merciful, compassionate God that you and I know today? Remember, the Old Testament is a physical manifestation of a New Testament spiritual reality. That's where we're going. So what's the big deal? First of all, what's the big deal about the rock? Let's look at 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 4. For I do not want you to be ignorant of the fact, brothers and sisters, that our ancestors were all under the cloud, and they all passed through the sea, and they were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and the sea. They all ate the same spiritual food and drank the same spiritual drink. Who are we talking about? This very same situation, right? These people in the wilderness. For they drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them, and that rock was Christ. So you know that rock that's always giving them water? Who is that? That's the Old Testament physical manifestation, the rock of the New Testament Christ. Jesus said in Matthew 7, when he was talking to he said, the wise man builds his house upon the rock, not on the sand, so that the floods can come but rather it's founded upon the rock. Psalm 61, the psalmist says, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. And then Matthew 16, Jesus said, up on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And we're not talking about Peter. We're talking about the revelation that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, that Peter was able to articulate. Symbolism is that rock that followed them in the wilderness is Jesus Christ. Even Isaiah, the prophet, was able with spiritual eyes to look into the future, and he declared, surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken and smitten by God and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. So when Moses struck the rock the first time and water flowed out, that was symbolic of Christ being on the cross. So what Isaiah was talking about, he was stricken and smitten by God. But the second time, whenever he came back, and he said the second time that you are to speak to the rock. The symbolism behind that is here in Hebrews. It says, Christ has appeared once for all at the culmination of the age to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. So Christ was sacrificed how many times? One time to take away the sin of many. So all this symbolism is about Jesus on the cross. When Moses struck the first time, he was out of obedience, the symbolism of Christ being struck and smitten on the cross. But the second time when he did it, he broke the type. He ruined, he messed up the typology, because from the time after Jesus died on the cross, from that time forward, we are simply supposed to declare. Speak the word, declare the good news from that time forward. The rock didn't have to be smitten again. Jesus doesn't have to go back to the cross again. I don't care what your need is. I don't care how deep your sin is. I don't care how bad your pain is. I don't care what your need is. It has already been provided for us through the cross of Jesus. He's not sitting at the right hand of the Father, and you come up with an issue and him go, oh gosh, I better go back and be smitten for that one because I forgot to cover that one. Beloved, it's already been taken care of. It's already finished. And everything that you need has already been provided, even if it's meaning water out of a rock.